2/3 of Americans are at risk to experience blackout. You could be one of them, sitting in the dark and cold for hours, for days, maybe even weeks. Are you ready to protect your family? You could be with Patriot Power Solar Generator 2000X. Folks say this new solar generator from 4Patriots is worth its weight in gold. Why? Because this generator has double the capacity and is expandable so you can run the big appliances like your fridge even longer. Or other devices like an electric blanket, microwave, RV air conditioner, or even an electric wheelchair. You also get 12 outlets, including 4 AC outlets, so you can power more devices at once, and 2 USB-C outlets, which can charge your phone 20 times faster than a regular plug. Best of all, this new solar generator is fume-free, safe to use inside, and never needs gas, ever. Over 150,000 Americans trust Patriot Power generators. Go to 4patriots.com/VTTGW to get your solar generator now. You'll even get a solar panel included free.
Hey, what's up, trash talkers? Listen, it's impossible to fight, okay, if you don't know what you're fighting for. Does that make sense? Like, if you're in the dumps and you're struggling with mental health, things of that nature, it's going to continue tearing you down, all right? Because you're consistently trying to fight something, which is that demon, which is usually something from the past, right? Maybe that why needs to be fighting for your future. Let that be your why. Get the hell up and start fighting for your future. Stop fighting things that happened in the past. Easier said than done, right? Go seek help. It's okay not to be okay. A lot of people need to hear this. You are more of a warrior and a fighter if you stand up and say, hey, this has to stop. I need to go seek help. The stigma, everything has changed. It's okay not to be okay.
Here is a firm believer in all men are created equal, but not all men live equal. That is why there's a certain select number of people in the DoD who decided to jump out of airplanes. And yes, we are better than you. 100%. Now, don't be the first triggered pansy to say, well, airborne's not relevant. You haven't jumped since World War II. Well, that's not accurate, for one. And two, it's like having a jalopy or a 68 Mustang. Well, a 68 Mustang's no longer relevant. Doesn't matter. It's still a better car than yours. So take it easy this National Airborne Day and just accept that we are better than you.
So, 2 things for today's Honesty Cap. First thing, how do all my boys from the 101st feel knowing that the Army decided that instead of actually making you airborne, they've just created a whole new division that's airborne because you just aren't cutting it? It sucks. Thing number 2, for all the folks who were like, airborne is irrelevant, doesn't even matter, they're making a whole new division of just airborne people because they're relevant. Think about that. How's that feel? Does it hurt a little bit? I hope it hurts a little bit.
This is the Veteran Trash Talk Hour, hosted by Nick, Dave, and Buddy. Real warriors making fun of other real warriors. Try to not get triggered.
What is going on, Trash Talkers? What is up, Gruntworks Nation? Welcome to episode 147 of the Trash Talk Hour. Special guest today is author Mike Nelson, and today I'm joined by Nick and Chris. Where's Buddy?
I think he had to go back to trial in Mexico.
Magic Mike.
Okay.
Event.
Okay.
I thought.
Or it was, yeah. I think he took. I think he had to lead a homosexual bachelor party.
Yeah.
Which
I think-
again,
We're okay
we
with
got we're okay with. All right, we're not judging it. It's just like it's not my cup of tea. I don't usually run.
Yeah,
like
those
that,
group
but-
texts that he was sending the other night, Nick, were pretty suspect. I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That might be what it is.
That's what. Hey, when you lead two different lives, you got to be careful with that because sometimes your other
Group
life
texting is a
comes
thing.
out in a text. And it's like,
Yeah.
what? Did he mean that for our group or is that for his closet group that he doesn't think we know about? So like, no, we got you, buddy, and we support you.
We love you, buddy. Yeah.
Whenever you want to come out, we're here for you. You're still
Yep.
going to be our friend. We still love you. So it is what it is. Yeah. Didn't know the show was going to start this way, but we'll run with it. So,
100%. 100%. Yeah.
and
Well,
judging
thanks,
by
everybody,
Mike's
for tuning
smile,
in.
he's in
Yeah.
the right place. He's in the right place.
Yeah. Mike is still trying to think about what he just got himself into, but we'll get into that. It'll be fun. So today, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah.
Second thoughts? Nah, you'll be good. Trust me. Thanks everybody for tuning in. David Gray. Who else? We got Jeremy Daniels and some other people. I can't see him, but they were saying
David
what's up.
Gray's
So,
a field artilleryman. Whatever.
he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. Kind of okay, but
He's airborne though, so he's.
Well,
cool.
yeah, he's at the mothership right now. He's rocking and rolling. So
That's what's up. What's up. So usually I talk about crazy conspiracies, and I guess this one kind of is a conspiracy. Chris kind of helped me out with this one. He messaged me on Tuesday and was like, "Dave, check this out." And I watched it, and then of course I went on TikTok and watched some more of the videos and on YouTube, and of course I found all kinds of crazy stuff about this. So are you any of you tracking what's going on in Mississippi behind that prison, that jail?
Jackson.
Where they found yeah. So long story short, there's a bunch of bodies back there. The minimal reports that they've had on the media shows 204, but it's upwards of 600 bodies apparently. And missing people are back there, not just prisoners that died. And just play the video, Chris, and then we'll have a discussion about it. This is some crazy stuff that is actually happening right now.
The gruesome discovery of 215 bodies buried in unmarked graves behind a jail outside of Jackson, Mississippi, has left a community in disbelief. The families are angry their loved ones were buried in so-called paupers' graves, marked by just a metal rod and a number, and families were never notified of their deaths. The startling revelation came months after the mother of 37-year-old Dexter Wade filed a missing persons report last March. It wasn't until August when Betterson Wade learned her son had been hit by a police car and killed, then buried in that same cemetery.
So this is actually going on right now. And obviously, if you go down that rabbit hole, supposedly they've dug up some bodies or whatever, and body parts are missing. Maybe they're donating or selling these things off. My biggest thing on this whole scenario is why isn't this like major news like all over the place, and why hasn't the Fed investigated yet? Because there's obviously a collaboration going on between the police out there, and I support the blue, but this is some crazy shit. Like bodies just being buried and like missing people being buried back there. Chris might have some more, intel on this because I didn't look too far into it, but it's pretty wild.
So yeah, he wasn't supposed to be anywhere else, and they just found him. Some of the graves are marked with numbers, some aren't even marked at all. It's just a metal stake in the ground or nothing. And some of the reports that I read was that they're making the people that want to retrieve their loved ones' bodies pay for it. They're having to pay to get their loved ones back. I'm trying to figure out why this guy was hit by a police car and killed and nothing happened. That seems like a little bit of a cover-up to me.
It seems like a huge cover-up, but like who is involved? Like the
Who's involved?
governor,
Who's buried
like
back
the
there?
prison, all the police in Mississippi, like who's buried back there? Because we're talking about 600 bodies. The initial report said 200 bodies, but like, what the hell is actually going on there? I mean, I don't know. I don't get it.
Also,
obviously a big cover-up.
Is this a privately funded prison, or is this a all state funded, facility? Because those private prisons get paid on the number of inmates that they have. So are these inmates dying in prison and they're just burying them back there? And they're still alive. Yeah, they're right here. Hey Jim, go put Hank's uniform on real quick. We need to do a body count.
Oh, so they're not reporting the deaths. That's what you're saying, so they can keep
Correct.
their revenue, their
Correct.
state
Right.
funding revenue in.
Correct.
Possibly,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And then one person was buried there. He wasn't locked up, Nick. It was a hit and run by the police, and then they grabbed the body and threw him back there too. Like he was never in prison.
A dumping ground.
Yeah. So exactly. So like, who else is back there? Missing people and stuff like that. That's a big conspiracy behind it, I guess. And then why the Fed hasn't investigated? Like there haven't been any arrests from what I'm tracking. Like it's kind of just being brushed under the radar. Like
the only media coverage has been PBS. That is the only media coverage, PBS. That's it.
Maybe we shouldn't have covered it either. Now I'm scared for my life.
Yeah.
I don't
well, it's not about Hillary. You're safe.
There's a helicopter circling my house right now.
Just stay out of Jackson.
What?
Yeah. Mike, what's your take? Have you heard of this? Do you know what's going on there?
Rhaegar, shut up.
No,
I haven't heard anything about it, but it's pretty disturbing. And
it is.
I would want to know who had jurisdiction over that prison, and whether it's local or whether it's state or whether it's federal.
Yeah.
And the farther down the food chain you get, like the local jail, the local constabulary, they get paid to house county. County gets paid to house state. State gets paid to house federal. And so there's a long chain of green that comes down on those kinds of things. And
interesting.
What they always say, whenever you want to know the answer, as soon as somebody says it's not about the money, it's about the money.
Wow. Yeah. And that's a good point. You just mentioned if it's federal, I didn't know that a state prison. Yeah. That would explain maybe why the lack of coverage, and they already knew what was going on, which is very disturbing in itself. Let's hope that's not the case. And it was just, some corrupt governors and the Mississippi police over there. But yeah, that's some serious stuff. What's your take, Nick? What's going on here?
Yeah, I'm curious with the TikTok video, and because they said like he got hit by the cops and then died, and then was there a missing person on that person?
His parents filed a missing person report on their son because he had never come home. But yeah, I think I know where you're getting at with that. But then, long story short, when these bodies were uncovered, his body was there as well. He still had his ID in his pocket. Yeah, it still had his ID in his pocket. And I'm like, well,
yeah.
So the original video that I sent Dave was about 8 minutes long, and it was the PBS news article about it. And it actually goes into depth how they were looking for their son, and the son had a rap sheet, but he wasn't doing anything when the cops hit him, and none of that. That's why we know he wasn't,
and when they called him, and
then they
when they
prison and they finally found him.
So when they submitted the report, the cops were like, "We don't know who he is. Like, we're going to look for him, but we have
nothing.
Yeah, we have no idea what's going on." Meanwhile, he was already hit by the police and buried behind the prison. Like, that's fucked up.
So a couple of things that like Mike brought up is the money, and then we talked about it to where we always say this. It's conspiracy has to have some truth, otherwise you're just a moron. And then two, there has to be a money trail. If there's no money in it, it's probably not happening, right? Because otherwise, why would anybody go through whatever type of shenanigans they're doing unless there's money involved? But my biggest problem with this it's not a problem, just nobody cares what happens in the South. Like America doesn't, right? They don't. And so that's why you're probably not seeing a lot of mainstream media about it, because it's like, oh, that's just Mississippi, right? But then there's Jeremy Daniels from YouTube brings up a 1990 movie Nothing But Trouble, and there's another movie with Robert Redford called Brubaker, right, where he takes over as warden of a self-sustaining prison, and he injects himself into the population as a prisoner to see how it's being run. Right. And then, so he finds out where all the corruption is before he takes over. But there are still self-sustaining prisons in the South. And, that's where you get that. Well, you flip a coin, right? Like there's a little bit less crime in some of these states because you're going to go over there. Right. If you commit a crime, that's where you're going. Right. So it's a pretty big deterrent from committing a crime to where, you commit a crime in California, you're just released a day later if it's under a certain amount of money, or if the prisons are overpopulated, they just let you go, right? So there isn't really, I'm not really scared to go break into somewhere. But you want to break into something in Jackson, Mississippi, right? Like
Yeah.
depending on what you break into and how connected they are to whether it is the Klan or the government or whatever, like you're gonna go spend some hard time.
But
here's
here's
the thing,
the crazy thing
Why
about
is
it.
the,
You're
why isn't the
focusing
far
on the
left? Why
prison.
isn't the far left like running with this one?
Right?
Because the
this
far
would
left
be a
started the
huge-
Klan.
Oh, that's
Well,
fair.
besides that, but I'm saying
He's not wrong.
like this could be like ideal to like run with. Like police killed another, like whatever
But
it is.
here's the
Obviously,
thing
there
is,
are,
like,
there are
you're
situations that are
focusing-
unjust. But this would like be headlines for them. This would be like pro like police kill everybody type stuff, and nobody's talking about it.
What I want
That's
to
just-
know is how
Yeah.
many of those
Yeah.
bodies behind the prison had nothing to do with the fucking prison to begin with. Because like the one
That's
guy
what I'm
that,
saying.
that,
Yep.
that started all of this, he didn't have shit to do with the prison except for he was hit by a cop. That was it.
Maybe.
Yeah, but there's too many people. There's too many people in the ground there for it to be just a group of bad actors.
Yeah.
You
Right.
can't bury that
Yep.
many people and keep it a secret if there's only 8 or 10 of you around.
Right.
That, and not only that, but in order to accumulate 215 or how many,
How long has it been there?
how long has it been going on? And is it handed down from, from sergeant to private to, just exactly who's running it and who's dealing with the show? There are a lot of people that are inconvenient that, might just need to be put in the ground if they're giving you trouble. But that's a lot of people that are becoming inconvenient.
I mean, maybe some of Epstein's books laid there.
Maybe his client list is there.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Anyhow, it's pretty crazy. And then going down that rabbit hole and just seeing all that, and like I guess I should have looked up the protocol when people die in prisons. Like, where are they buried?
Well, that'd have been way too much work.
Like
I mean, I did all the work finding the story to begin with.
a simple Google search would probably tell me. But they have like the graveyard right behind the prison, and you can't even call that a graveyard. It's just like metal poles with numbers on them.
Hey, I mean, we buried our dead in wars with just the cross, So like,
Yeah.
I don't know where they are. That one stinks. But it's the way Mike put it is. I mean, we'll just transition right into the Book of Earl here because that's what I was going to talk about. To where he brought up, is it just been getting handed down that way? Now, I want everybody to pay attention to this. All right, I think I have to relook at the scripture I wrote years ago when I was, when I was doing my meditation and writing how to live life, and it was, it's avoid the thinking trap of this is how we've always done it. All right,
I like that. Yep.
We're all guilty of it. And again, before you go out there screaming hypocrite on social media, everything I say in the Book of Earls, I somehow screwed it up myself. Right? Like I somehow was one of those people I'm talking about, and I still do it. Like I might do it tomorrow, right? But you have to catch yourself. So avoid those thinking traps of this is how it's always been done. Now, I have been lucky, I think, in my military career. So when I got introduced to Dave, and I was in his platoon, he was a young E5, I was a young E4, and there was just a certain type of attitude in that platoon, right? That we didn't accept failure. All right. We looked out for each other. And, it was such a warm upbringing for me to where I could trust everybody around me. And then we had our famous third platoon, which had a lot of great people in it. But for some reason, they always sucked. Right. And it was like, why? Why do they always suck? And I had a lot of friends that were in that platoon. Right. But then it just continued to suck, right? And what I think it pretty much boils down to, and again, I'm a systematic thinker, so there's probably 1,000 things that caused it, right? But it came down to this is how we've always done it. This is how we counsel people. This is how we train. This is what we do in the field. Oh, that's just second platoon making fun of us. No, we're making fun of you because you're wrong. Like we're making fun of you because you're not holding the standard of what you're supposed to be doing. Oh, you're going to get recocked again. You're going to have to go do that exercise again because you did it wrong. right? And we
It was
tried
a
to warn
long
you.
nights during
Right,
live
yeah,
fires,
oh.
dude. Poor
Yeah.
bastards, man.
Yeah, but
That was my squad. I don't know how I got in that squad, but all the rest of those guys were a bunch of fuck ups.
yeah, but how quickly can your mindset change to just go with the flow, right?
Exactly.
To where it's like this, as opposed to this isn't right, and this stems into all other kinds of things. I mean, you can bring up hard skills for combat, or you can bring up soft skills for like people skills, like sexual assault, harassment, EO, all those things. Where if just one person would have stood up and said this is not right, okay, it probably stops right there, right? Or
Maybe.
that dude gets maybe. Well, back in the day, maybe gets the shit kicked out of him, right? It's like it is
That's
what it is.
so-
But again, chances are, if you have the chance to stand up for yourself, like I said, I've always, whenever I stood up for what was right, I'm like, anybody who doesn't disagree with me, we go out back right now, right? Like,
Take it to the tree line.
we'll go to the tree line right now. We'll handle it. Maybe you win. Who knows? Like,
Yeah.
you know, like it is what it is. And I kind of got triggered by it again today. We were talking about a pre-show before you got on, Mike, but I was watching, the U.S. Navy is innovating with suicide prevention training with virtual reality. And you saw a bunch of people get on there and start just crushing it, and oh, it's just a horrible idea. It's a step backwards, yada, yada, yada. Oh, as a prevention coordinator, I'm so-and-so, I'm this, I'm that. And it's like, did you not read the independent review on suicide prevention released in February about how shitty your fucking job is right now and how bad you've been doing?
Hey,
Like,
Nick, can
not
I ask
that-
you a question on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
What rank were those people that were bitching?
Well, again, they were allegedly coordinators, so allegedly in charge of the whole programs where they were.
Right, but what rank? Civilian?
O2s. Probably
Yeah,
O2s.
GS, probably GS job.
Yeah,
Yep.
GS jobs.
Civilians, the ones that
Yeah,
don't give a shit
civilians.
about the military.
Right.
They just care
And
about the paycheck.
they're more cared about their job. And they are not they, I shouldn't say they, because there's a lot of good GS civilians out there.
Mhm.
Those ones that
100%.
do that, those ones that do that they are narcissists and they're only looking out for themselves and keeping their job, and the status quo is just fine with them. Because the status quo is what's paying them currently. All right. They have zero
Everything
desire-
else doesn't affect them. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
They have zero desire in improving it. Now, on the green suiter side, especially in the infantry, I was raised in like I said, I got lucky to where I was raised in the right platoon to where if we saw something wrong, we stopped it. Right.
Fuck yeah, we did.
And that was the culture. All right. Were we the perfect platoon? By no means. No. Like,
Yeah, we've been pretty close.
We had guys doing cocaine. We had guys, beating up hookers. There was all this stuff. I'm not gonna say their names, but like
Not even on the
it's like-
infantry side, we had that. We had a cocaine ring in Dispo,
right.
Quantico,
And so,
peddling it.
as my career went on, I became the traveling platoon sergeant that I was getting maneuvered. And then when I became a first sergeant, I got maneuvered to the worst freaking company, the worst platoon, the ones with culture problems, because my senior leaders are like, send Nick over there.
Yeah, he'll fix it.
He'll crush that culture right now. Right. And this is what happens to Fort Hood. Now it's called Fort Cavazos, Fort Bliss. All right. All these bases that have these horrendous track records, it's so rooted in the systemic problem to where this is kind of, it's just Fort Hood. That's why it sucks. Really? Right? Like nobody ever went in there and just tried to crush it. One guy did. And his name he's retired now, so I'll say it. It was one of the greatest leaders we've ever had, was Sergeant Major Burgoyne. All right. Cliff Burgoyne went down there and he tried to do something about it. And he was put under investigation within like months. Right. And so they slowed down his progress, and then he got reinstated because he didn't do anything wrong. Same shit happened to me. I was under investigation the majority of my time as a first sergeant. Right. Because if you're going to squash a culture problem, you're going to piss off some people, and you're going to piss off some people who are really happy with how shitty it was going there. Right. Because they were the ones profiting off of it, whether it was the time, or control over other human beings. Right. So avoid that thinking trap of the status quo, and you're better off getting fired. You're better off being unemployed. You're better off, going and finding someplace better than sitting somewhere and knowing that you're allowing bad shit to happen. All right. You'll love it later. You'll love yourself more, and the people around you will respect you more when you're the one that stood up for what was right. So again, that's the Book of Earl. Just avoid that thinking. Avoid that thinking trap of this is how we've always done it, because that's when you.
Well, just being able to accept change, like plain and simple, accept change.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of
Period.
difficult.
You know,
The culture is self-perpetuating, and it's designed to get over on other people so that you have the advantage. And one of the things that it creates is if they've gotten over on you and over on you and over on you, pretty soon what you want is you want to get over on somebody too. And so you want my turn. And the cycle repeats. And it repeats again and again. And they don't want to change it because I want my turn.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you start screwing around with somebody's turn coming up, now you're going to be in trouble.
Right.
That's a very good point.
And that's what happens when you become a young sergeant. You know, it's like, oh, my turn to start, fucking these privates down. My turn, baby.
I had to deal with it, so do you.
Right? Yeah. And that's the way we did it. You know,
well, a lot of it too is our society is huge as a whole on instant gratification.
Yeah.
And change takes time.
Everyone is. Sex is instant gratification. Everyone likes it.
Amazon, 2-day shipping. Nowadays, if I have to wait for something for 7 days, where the fuck's it at? I'm sitting there watching my watch. You know,
that's America for you. Just America for you.
It's easier,
which is great, which is cool.
I know most of the expensive shit doesn't come from America.
Yeah.
Dolce
yeah.
It's easier to just hide something or sweep it under the rug or just know this is how it's going to be than actually enacting the change that.
Well, there's a gravy
time
train too, and there's a lot of different places where the gravy train runs, and I was thinking about what Big Earl said here just a little bit ago, and when I first started going to the VA for my health care, I had to have a psych interview, and they decided that I had PTSD, and so they started interviewing me and asking me what my coping mechanisms were. Well, every time I would tell them what a coping mechanism was that I used, it would stop working for me. And so I said, I just can't do this anymore. I can't, you guys are killing me here. And now ever since then, in my file, number 1 page is PTSD, suicide ideation, that sort of thing. And I always have to answer for it because I declined the gravy train. I could have got on it. I could have got a disability out of it and a whole bunch of other things, but it wasn't right because I was just okay.
Sounds familiar with the pills, huh, Nick?
Right. Exactly right. So it's the VA is a frustrating thing sometimes. And again, there's lots of VA employees that are great human beings.
Yeah.
And there's lots of, VA things that go wrong because of how big it is and what it has to do. And just, again, that's a whole different ball of wax, for sure. But
I don't want to badmouth the VA because I'm 100% disabled and I get all of my care through them. I wish they didn't push pills on me so much, but it's better to sedate me.
That's what they're told to do. Yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah. We've covered that and we can always do it later in the show if we want to. But yeah, it's crazy how it's just a pill for everything, and it's like one of our co-founders, Joe, who does the Fight Show, he was on 9 different medications, and like 4 of them were to counteract the other 5 from the way they were acting together. And it's like, what the shit? And he's like, I finally got a VA doctor that looked at my prescription list and goes, who put you on all these? Right, and started getting rid of like half of them. Like Jesus. But yeah, Chris, introduce the guest. Book of Earl.
Yeah.
So today we've got Mike Nelson, Vietnam veteran. Welcome home, sir. And he's an author. Veteran author, surprise.
Writes pansy shit.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, I don't. Did Bruce Did you wrong him somehow? Did you lose a bet? Because all Bruce told us about was this fairy tale fantasy crap that you write, instead of all your awesome war stories. So, Mike, let's get into all that.
Well, I wrote
Welcome
some
to the
fairy
dumpster
tale.
fire.
Yeah.
I wrote some fairy tale fantasy crap. But I did those just lately. I wrote some fantasy books with my daughter, and there's a story behind that, why I did it. But the original, I wrote 3 books, 3 novels before these, and they were about my growing up years, my time serving in the Army, and all the things that made me crazy back then, and kind of got it out. I got one book done. In fact, I was telling you guys a little while ago about how I accidentally went AWOL.
Tell it again.
Yep, let's hear it.
Oh, well,
What happened?
when I went into the service, and of course, you have the whole day at the intake station running around in your skivvies, and then they put us on a plane and they flew us to Fort Lewis up at SeaTac in Seattle, and we got there about 2:00 in the morning, long night, and surprise, surprise, it was raining pitchforks and hammer handles. When we came out, it was October, and it was just rainy season, and they marched us through the airport. The place was dead empty, and we went out on the sidewalk in front, and in the rain, and it was the kind of rain that you'd drown if you looked up. It was raining so hard, and the first thing the SP did was he pointed at me, he said, "Here, you take all those bags and you throw them in the back of the bus." Well, it's just a school bus painted green. So I took the cart with all of the little AWOL bags on it around to the back of the bus. I threw them all in, closed the door, banged on the door, walked around the bus to get on. The bus door closes, and the bus drove away and left me standing there on the sidewalk. Well, the airport was closed. There was nobody in there. There was no USO desk or anything like that. And I probably had $10 in my pocket or something like that. And so I figured I was on the West Coast. How far away could California be? It turns out it takes 5 months to walk from Seattle to San Diego. I got picked up for hitchhiked and spent some time with hippies and spent some time with druggies and spent some time sleeping under underpasses, and I finally got picked up for vagrancy in Fresno, and I hadn't spent a day in the Army yet, but they were most happy to have me back because they showed me how to crawl in sawdust in my underwear for about 2 weeks to get my mind right, and then I got to go to basics.
I feel like if there's any part of that where you were required to, do that, like for the Marine Corps, we have to do a 15K hump. I feel like they should just auto pass you after that 5 months of walking from Washington to California.
Well, I got rides.
So you're the actual story of Rambo up in Washington.
Yeah.
You were just trying to get something. You were just trying to get something to eat.
Trying to get something to eat.
Yeah, that must have been a really good rat.
Yeah. Man. So yeah, what unit did you end up getting paired up with?
173rd.
Oh,
Airborne.
Good. All right.
But I was only there for a real short period of time. Like I told you, I got busted up pretty good, and they sent me back. Came back here, but it wasn't $1 million wound or anything like that. It was bad enough, but I had those 5 months of bad time that I had to serve, so there was no way they were letting me out.
Right.
Yeah. You got 5 months to make up for.
Yeah, I had to get my mind right, I guess. And so first they sent me to Chicago to the AFI station there so that I could be a hometown recruiter. And that didn't go well. I only lasted about 4 or 5 weeks there before they found out that I was talking as many people out of joining the Army as I was in the letting them in.
Do I look happy to you? Yeah.
That's it exactly.
Do you want to have to walk?
Do you see this face? Does this face look happy?
It's a perfect advertisement.
Yeah.
I spent the rest of the time in Germany.
Where at?
Okay.
Nice. We're at in Germany.
I was in Nuremberg mostly, but I was rescue and evac over there because they didn't have a lot of 11 Bravos that weren't already associated with things. So I got a different job and drove wrecker and different things like that. Got to see most of Europe that way. Wasn't the worst
Very
duty
nice.
in the world.
Yeah, there was.
I grew up in Kaiserslautern, Germany.
No such thing as
K-Town.
No such
K-Town,
thing as
yeah.
K-Town. We all
I actually grew up next to Sembach Air Base, a little small town called Mehlingen, Germany. You're probably familiar. If you know K-Town, you know Vogelway, Ramstein. Yeah. I lived there for 21 years. I love
no
Germany.
kidding. I was in K-Town at least once a week. K-Town, Pirmasens, Germersheim.
Isn't Rammstein a band?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I was just in Germany with the wife last year, and the Altstadt Fest was going on. And I'm sure if you've been in K-Town, you celebrated that, but that was a lot of fun. So, yeah, the stomping grounds. And then Germany in general, Europe is a lot of fun. So,
Yeah, and to to get on to the books, I remember reading the Tim O'Brien, the things they carried, with his recollection of Vietnam. And I'm excited to go get your books because he kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, he kind of did the same thing to where he changed the names of the players, right, of the actors, right? And he was writing his experiences through other people's names so that their experiences were still alive, and he kept the things that he wanted to keep private were still kept private. But he talks about a situation in that book to where he starts going to Canada. Like he's like, I don't think I want to go with this. I'm going to go drive up to Canada. And if you want to, if you can, Mike, with one of your books, you were talking about how your father had served and how that relationship, when you decided to enlist, how did that go? If you won't mind getting into that.
Well, that's the second book I wrote. The first book is called Bless Me, Father, because I spent a lot of time on the wrong side of the law when I was younger, especially once I got back from the service. You guys are all too young to know, but when we came back from the service, we weren't exactly welcome back with open arms. There wasn't any.
We're aware, but we didn't experience that. Yep.
And back then you had to fly standby, and you had to fly standby in your uniform. And so you had to walk through the airports in uniform, in your dress greens. And people threw things at us and called us baby killers and everything else under the sun. So I was already tagged as being a criminal because of my AWOL time. And because I was tagged as having that kind of attitude, I got put with the platoon that was the fuck-ups that he was talking about a little bit earlier. The difference is that those guys couldn't make rank. I made rank because I wasn't that. But the thing about it was, the thing that I got to see the most was the corrupt side of the Army. And that's what they showed me, was the corruption side. And I got pretty good at it. So when I got out, I stayed good at it for a while. And then my father came calling. And what I was telling you was my father wouldn't talk to me about his time in the Army. He was in the Army Air Corps. That was before there was an Air Force. He was a tail gunner on a B-17 bomber.
Oh, wow.
Flew 26 missions, but he wouldn't talk about it until he was really literally close to death. And he gave me a diary that he had kept, handwritten diary, little small book that he had written about his missions. And it was always the same. January 26, 1943, Germersheim, Germany, in the air, 9 hours, 22 minutes. Lost the waist gunners, lost the navigator, came in on a dead stick. Landing gear won't go down, bellied in, lost the co-pilot, that kind of thing. And always the last line at every entry was, "We go again tomorrow."
Oh, shit.
So, I mean, it chokes me up just talking about it. I mean, it was incredible. And I can understand why he never wanted to talk about it.
Those guys were hard.
Just horrific of, watching these guys go down. And the tail gunner was the only guy that was guaranteed to die if the plane went down, because there was no way out. You couldn't get out of the plane. You had no parachute because you couldn't fit in the tail gun turret with a parachute on. So you had to leave that in the bomb bay. And so you didn't have a prayer.
Oh, shit. I did not know that. That's crazy. So there was no chance of survival.
No chance. Tail gunners, the average life expectancy of a tail gunner was 5 missions. So
And
like
he
I
did
said,
26?
he flew 26.
Wow.
And he got wounded his first mission. He took shrapnel to his face on his first time up.
Oh.
So I took that diary of his. I had his permission, and I took that diary and I wove that into my second book, so that there's parts in there where I lifted things right out of his diary as I was telling the story about him and when he came back and what I found out about him after that. And the second book becomes a little more fictional because I was acting outside of the parameters of good citizenship. And I got myself into a bind, a pretty good bind, where I was between a rock and a hard place. I couldn't go to the police. I couldn't go back to the people I was working for. And that's when I discovered that my father and I were the same person.
Wow.
And so he saved my ass.
Real quick, Mike, I'm gonna throw an image up on the screen so we can kind of see what you were talking about. And it's an image of the B-17 tail gunner. That's all the room they had.
That's it.
That's nuts.
Except for one thing, in front of him, you see the little red line?
Right here?
The red line on his chest there?
Yep.
That's a 1-inch piece of sheet steel. And that's where the incoming rounds were supposed to be deflected off of, was that piece of steel. That was the only armor he had.
Wow. That's crazy.
I mean, fast forward, 60 years and people were putting pieces of metal on the Humvees before we got up armored ones so they could have some protection. It's like,
yeah. Good point.
Just it's crazy. And Mike, getting, please, we've all been choked up on this show before.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you there's somebody watching that has the same feelings as you or the same experiences as you that you're probably helping right now. And that experience, like we've talked about before, like you said, we didn't experience that type of or lack of homecoming, right? We definitely understand, and we pay attention to that, which is why we love having our Vietnam brothers and sisters on this show, because
100%.
you're taking the courage to get things out, right? That a lot of people go to their grave with, and sometimes they go to their grave on their own hand too soon, right? And as opposed to, there's lots of ways to express it. You don't got to write books. You don't got to do a podcast. You don't. But talk about how, in those writings, it helped you.
Well, it was, I've rolled around you guys too, and I'm absolutely sure anybody that's put on the uniform, you go back there in your mind, you go back there, and it comes back to you at all kinds of times. Sometimes somebody triggers a memory. Sometimes there's just, the nights are just too long, and you have these thoughts and these memories, and you chew on them, you stew through them. I could have done this. Maybe we should have done that. So sad, too bad. And I spent 45 years grinding on that stuff. And so what happened was my dad gave me that diary. And for him, it was therapeutic for him to write it down. And I started thinking, I got married late in life. I didn't get married until I was in my 30s. I didn't have kids until I was in my later 30s and 40s. And so I had all of this life before that. And I thought, well, maybe I should write some of this down, just like Dad did. But this time I'm not going to keep it a secret. I want them to read it. So I started writing these little episodes, of whatever it was, got a ride from Spokane all the way to Portland and slept under the underpass and, that kind of stuff. And so I just started writing it out and in a way that I could give that to them, just short stories, and say, this is why you think I'm so fucked up. And or why you think I'm so strange, because this is who I used to be. And I started writing it, and somebody said, what are you spending all your time writing this stuff for? And I said, I don't know, I'm just getting it down. And they looked at it and said, boy, this is a great story. You should write this out into a story. Well, the more of it that I wrote, the better I started feeling about it. And I started getting my thoughts and my feelings down on paper. And by the time I was done with the third book, I didn't wake up at night wondering what I should have done or shouldn't have done. It was very cleansing for me to write that and get it out. Now, I know it's 3 books and it seems a little long-winded, but I'd like to think that they're pretty good stories.
Yeah, what's the third one about?
The third one is when I finally did get my shit together. Excuse my language, guys.
You say whatever you want, really.
You can say whatever you want on here.
There's very little that's not allowed.
Well, when I finally did get my shit together, it took a long time, and I went back to school, went back to college, and I got my doctorate, and I practiced as a physician for 40 years. So the third book is about the transition from criminal to practicing physician. And then instead of having a lot of clinic hours and things like that, I worked emergency, and I also had a house call practice, and I had house calls 3 days a week in an Amish community. And so each chapter is a story about some crisis that I walked into that I had to fix, sort of a all creatures great and small, only instead of cows and horses and pigs, Amish people.
Wow.
Yeah, and then
that's probably pretty interesting. Can you elaborate on one of them? Can you elaborate on one of the situations that you walked in? Obviously, you don't want to give too much away because we.
Oh no, I don't care. I don't care.
Book, but
I'll tell you what, they're the greatest books never read. So I'm not too terribly worried about giving anything up on it. I one time I got I got a postcard in the mail at my house, and it was, you know, a 3x5 index card, and there was a place in the corner where there had been a quarter taped to the postcard, and the address on it said Nelson, leave on the route. That was the address on the postcard. And on the back of the postcard, I still have it, so I know that it's authentic. And on the back of it, it said, "Can you come out? Jonah has hurt his foot. Don't come tomorrow because we have a wedding." Well, it was Friday night. If there's a wedding on Saturday, I can't come. And you can't do business with the Amish on Sunday, so I had to go on Friday night. Ooh. So I went, winter night, really, really cold winter night, and went, knocked on the door, came in. Everybody was in the barn choring, except for Jonah because he'd hurt his foot. So he's sitting in front of the stove, wood stove, with a great big bag of snow on his foot. And I take the bag off to take a look at it, and what he's done is hit himself in the foot with an axe and split his foot between the big toe and the toe next to it all the way to his ankle.
Jesus.
You gotta send a card out to, hey, we got, because no phones. This is, right. I mean,
I'm thinking, you know, I just dropped a hammer on it, or, you know, I twisted my ankle a little bit. No, he split his foot in half. No big deal. You can't come tomorrow, though. We got a wedding.
Well, he probably was doing something stupid. Probably was lazy.
It's
one way to get out of chores.
Yeah, I guess they don't like getting out of chores, though. I got to tell you, that's what they live for. But anyway, so that was a very interesting thing. I didn't have enough suture in my bag, and so I had to use horsetail.
Wow,
that's awesome.
That is. So, Mike, we introduced you talking about some fantasy
That's good.
stuff.
That's good.
Then you turned it back on us, saying that you did it with your daughter. So now we feel kind of.
And there's a story behind it.
Yeah, you said there's a story behind it. So let's hear about it.
Well, I wrote the 3 books and I was done. I was like empty. You know, by the time I got that out of my system, I didn't feel like I had anything. I'm not a writer, and I had never written anything. I was a terrible student.
5 published books. I'm not a writer.
And so she said she's my tail ender. I didn't have her until I was 52, and so she said, "Dad,
all right, okay."
Well, even a blind squirrel finds an acorn once in a while.
Not a big one.
So she said, "Dad, you really need to keep writing." And I said, "I don't have anything to write about. I'm empty. I don't have any more ideas. I don't feel like writing anything." And she said, "Well, you got to write." And I said, "Like what? What would I write about?" And she said, "Well, write about us." And I said, "Well, I don't know. What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, you know, ever since," and this is true, since the time she was 8 years old, I used to take her out of school for 2 weeks every year. And we would go on an adventure. And sometimes it was in the summer, but more often it was in the spring or something like that. And so we would go on a legit adventure. We would go down to the Marathon Key and rescue sea turtles, or we would go to, Apostle Islands and look at the shipwrecks and study the lighthouses, or we would go to Big Sur, California, or something like that. And for 2 weeks, it was a learning experience adventure that we would do every year, and we still do it. She's 22 now.
Oh, yeah, and lasting memories right there. Yeah,
and we do it. We do it every year. We got one coming up pretty soon here. And she said, "Write about that." And I said, "What? We're going to make a travel log? That sounds dull as dirt." And she said, "No, Dad, make it about a treasure hunt or something. Use the adventures and make them into a treasure hunt." And I said, "Oh, that sounds really exciting. How am I supposed to write about that?" She said, "Well, make it about magic. Make it, whatever." So that's what they're about. It's about a father and a daughter who go on this treasure hunt, only to find out that she's a witch and he's a druid. And like he
Twist to
said,
it, a little twist.
little twist. And so he takes her to meet the druids and the witches so that they can teach her how to see life the way life is really supposed to be seen. So it's really a very philosophical study of magic. Like the guy says, he says, I don't really do magic. I just bend the rules a little bit and it looks like magic to everybody else.
Oh, I like that.
That's incredible. And for those of you watching,
Yeah.
And you know what, I am going to steal some of this for my own family for sure. Things start. One of the reasons why we started Veteran Trash Talk was to promote veteran-owned businesses, get our ideas out into the public to where, you know, everybody wants to be like, oh, I have the answer for this. Well, no, you don't. You have the answer for yourself, maybe, right? But that answer might work for 5,000 more people, but not 10,000. So right. the bigger our community gets, the more ideas come out. And I just got an idea from you. So I hope those of you listening, and we have the audio on the podcast that we'll hopefully upload later. And people are listening to it. So if you're listening to it hopefully, Chris, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Hopefully.
I got we got one sponsor and they're like, hey, where's the last 2 episodes? I'm like, oh, well, let me message Chris. Anyways, but again, we can go back and prove this just like we did last night on the fight show about the selfies being sent. We can get into the data, but those ideas that you just shared, I think they definitely hit me. So again, those of you watching, we have VTT official as well. Get on there, share an idea, share something that you do that brings you joy, right? And then maybe that will open the door for somebody else. But yeah, so now you said you're at 3 books with your daughter as well.
Two, just 2 so
Two.
far.
Okay.
There's one on the way, I guess.
Is that the first edition that Bruce sent us?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I was digging into that one a little bit. And so that same kind of thing. You kind of just you change the names of the locations, but everything. So it's kind of like this kind of happened, and then this is what we got from it.
Yeah, it's easier to write about the scenery if you've already seen it yourself, and so it's kind of a little bit of a cheat. The adventure can go to one of these places that we've already seen, and it's easy to set the scenery and the background and everything else, and then all you got to do is tell a story about it.
That's phenomenal. We had another author on here from the GWAT, and he's still doing great things with Ryan Hendrickson. He wrote The Tip of the Spear. He's a Green Beret that got his legs all mangled up, and he still served. And he's in Ukraine most of the time now, not on any type of political mission, simply just to get rid of landmines. And I say simply. But
nothing simple about that,
right? But
nope.
He had dealt with a lot, and then he started writing his ideas, his thoughts down, and it turned into a book. And we've had a couple of guys on the show like that talking about it. So again, just for people who are tuning in later, can you just one more time explain that power that comes down that worked for you? That power that
he was just on Sean Ryan too. Did you watch him on Sean Ryan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So explain that power again, that, before we turn it over to Chris for the AR, explain that how that helped you, that power of putting your thoughts down on paper.
Well, I had a lot of, I don't even know what they call it. I had a lot of unresolved anger issues associated with it. I got busted up pretty good. And it took a long time for me to get myself squared away. I've got 2 artificial knees. I've got an artificial right shoulder, artificial left elbow. I've had most of the fingers on my left hand reattached. And so I had a lot of pain and a lot of anger issues. And when I started writing and telling the story, I made sure that I didn't tell the story like I was the hero. I told the story like the way that it was, hopefully in an amusing and interesting sort of way, I hope. But what it really did was the more I wrote about it, the better I felt about my life. And the fact that not only did all that stuff happen, but I rose above it.
And then I think a key takeaway that I don't know if the other guys are getting the same thing I am is that when you put things into perspective in your own life by listening to what you're saying is everybody wants to feel like they're going through the worst or the best situation, right? They want to make it personal. And everything you're explaining to me, and I hope some of the audience is getting this, which we know they are, some of them are, is that your whole body can be failing, your mind can be failing, but it's not over. Like it doesn't mean it's over. Right? Go find a way to, and again, I'm going to read your books. I'll go get them after the show. Like find a way to help people, and that's what, Ben Owen's been on our show a few times. It's like, if you're struggling with yourself, go help someone else. Right. And then maybe that turns your fuel into more positivity and actually doing more things to help others. So I really,
perspective.
Yes. So I really appreciate you sharing this. I know it's difficult for a lot of people to do it. It was difficult for me, but then we started a podcast and now we talk about it all the time. So I really appreciate you coming on and, sharing what you've done with your life and how you've analoged it to where now people can either grow from it. I mean, they can even hate you for it. I mean, it is what it is, right? And it's like, but at least you're affecting and you're getting a response out of people. So really appreciate that. Really appreciate having you on, Mike. And anything else that you guys have for Mike before I turn it over to Chris?
I was quiet, man. I was just listening. I loved everything about it, man. Mike, thank you for your service. Seriously, I know you can't hear this enough. Thank you for your service. You understand how much we respect you and what you went through. When you were talking about like the airport stuff, when we walked to the airport in uniform, we're all getting, cheers and intercom.
Cheers,
talking about veterans,
beers,
like
steak dinners.
Screw you, buddy.
Which is why you don't say thank you to your service to a Vietnam veteran. You say welcome home.
And we try to relate to an extent, because like I deal with PTSD, TBI, and all that. But then there is a lot of support out there. When you came back, you didn't have all that support, and then it's a lot easier for us to navigate those situations compared to how you had to navigate it. And it just hats off. Cheers to you. Salute.
Yeah, cheers, and to your father.
Thank you for your service, brother. Thank you for your service. Absolutely.
All right, Chris, give us AAR.
So we learned that you don't want to go to Jackson, Mississippi. Stay away from there. You're going to end up in an unmarked
We're going to end up there.
behind a prison. Just stay away. Mike wrote more than just fantasy crap with his daughter. He wrote some really good stuff, and the fantasy stuff has got an interesting turn to it, and we need to listen to our Vietnam vets. We need to respect them. We need to honor them because they're not going to be here much longer. We're all getting
Jesus
old.
Christ!
Wow, you went dark as fuck there.
Yeah, you went.
We're all
getting old, stop, bro. Shut the hell up.
It's true.
By far the worst line we've ever heard on this podcast.
Go ahead. I don't know.
Go give Mike a kiss. He'll be gone tomorrow.
Yeah, as we know, Dave lived in Germany, as we always hear. Pretty much covers it all.
Yeah, nice. All right, Mike, last words before Faceman closes us out.
All right, just a quick one. The first 3 books I wrote under the pen name Michael Dees because my middle initial is D. My mother always called me Michael D. And so when I was writing the books, she was telling everybody, Michael Dees got a book coming out. Michael Dees wrote a book. And then she passed away before the first book came out. So I changed my name to Michael Dees because these are Michael Dees books.
Love it.
Nice.
Love it.
we'll
Thanks
definitely
again, brother. Go ahead,
anytime you
Nick.
got
Yeah.
something coming out, again, sorry, Dave, but like send it our way. Have Bruce send it our way. We'll promote it on the page. So
We've got the links in the chat for everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got a new one that I'm almost done with now. I don't mean to keep you guys.
No,
You're good. You're good.
It's called Deathbed Confessions of Harry Beach, and it's about an FBI recruit who's assigned to sit with this serial killer on his deathbed and try to get him to tell him where the bodies are, and he's a pretty calloused criminal and not interested in telling him, and so the kid has to learn how to get into his head, and so it's a thriller.
That sounds awesome.
Like that.
I'm ready for that one to come out.
Really appreciate you. For everybody that's watching, thank you for your service. Specifically you, Mike, and I know a lot of people are going to watch this later on. For everybody that tuned in late, go check out veterantrashtalk.com. It's got the links to everything. YouTube, go to YouTube, give us a subscribe and a like. Yeah, we're all wearing VTT merch. I was going to get to that in a second because we are shadow banned on YouTube. So a like and a subscribe would be great. Push us out in the algorithm. If you want some of our awesome merch, go check out shop.veterantrashtalk.com. It's got awesome tees. Support the cause. And we'll be back next Saturday. Love you guys. Boom. You can stay on, Mike.
2/3 of Americans are at risk to experience blackout. You could be one of them, sitting in the dark and cold for hours, for days, maybe even weeks. Are you ready to protect your family? You could be with Patriot Power Solar Generator 2000X. Folks say this new solar generator from 4 Patriots is worth its weight in gold. Why? Because this generator has double the capacity and is expandable so you can run the big appliances like your fridge even longer. Or other devices like an electric blanket, microwave, RV air conditioner, or even an electric wheelchair. You also get 12 outlets, including 4 AC outlets, so you can power more devices at once, and 2 USB-C outlets, which can charge your phone 20 times faster than a regular plug. Best of all, this new solar generator is fume-free, safe to use inside, and never needs gas, ever. Over 150,000 Americans trust Patriot Power generators. Go to 4patriots.com/VTTGW to get your solar generator now. You'll even get a solar panel included free.